What if the paycheck you've been chasing your entire life is actually the thing keeping you trapped? Think about it. Most people spend decades trading hours for money. They wake up early, work hard, get paid, and repeat the cycle again and again. Yet despite all their effort, they never achieve true financial freedom. Why? Because they have been taught to think about income, not systems. They focus on earning money instead of creating the mechanisms that generate it. The wealthiest people in the world understand a secret that most never discover. They know that money follows systems. A salary depends on your presence. A system works whether you're actively involved or not. A salary has limits. A system can grow. A salary buys survival. A system creates freedom. Look around you. Every successful business, every thriving brand, every source of recurring income exists because someone stopped thinking like an employee and started thinking like a builder. They stopped asking, how can I make more money? And started asking, how can I create a process that produces value continuously? The difference between financial struggle and financial abundance is often found in that single shift in thinking. This speech is not about getting rich overnight. It's not about shortcuts, luck, or magical solutions. It's about developing a mindset that sees opportunities where others see obstacles.
He's given you so much game. Let me say that again. He's given you so much game before we continue in so little time. One of the things he said, which I think is where the real gold is, right? He keeps talking about systems, yes, but he keeps going back to the thinking. And I say this all the time, right? This was one of the greatest shifts I had, which really helped me. Understanding that wealthy people, wise people, think totally different to poor people. Before I had this revelation, I really believed that everybody just thought the same way. I really believe that everyone had the same sorts of thoughts. Even though like people do different stuff and you hear people say different stuff, I guess because I didn't fully understand the connection between what you think and what you do, I didn't fully understand it. So when he's talking about people think about a salary and some people think about a system, he's showing you that people think differently. So the way I think, the way my mind works, I like to understand stuff, which is very system thinking, right? But at the same time, it always made sense to me when it started making sense to me that if you want to be wealthy, if you want to be wise, it only makes sense to do what the wise people do what the wealthy people do, and think what they do. And yeah, think about it. No pun intended. When most people focus on what someone does, and it's important to think about what they do, but people only do what they think about. I'll say that again. People only do what they think about. But more importantly, people only do what they think about most often. And people only do what they think about most often because what they think about most often typically is what they believe. So if you believe that income is your ticket to financial freedom, you will continue to, as he said earlier on, work a job every single day, trade loads of your time for a capped, limited amount of money every single month. But really what we should do is think about, okay, hold on. What are wealthy people doing? Okay, what are the wise people doing? Notice I always link wealth and wisdom, right? Because that's how the Bible links them. Wealth is attracted to wisdom. So if you want wealth, you need to be wise. That's the system that God has set up. So when I think in those ways and in that system, I always think to myself, okay, cool. Number one, what are the wise people doing? That's important. What do the wise people think? And most importantly, what do wise people believe? So you notice how it said, right? Wealth is attracted to wisdom. That is one of my beliefs. So you know what happens because I believe that? I think about that a lot of the time. Wealth is attracted to wisdom. Wisdom is like a magnet for wealth. So the wiser you are, the more wealth which is going to go in your direction. So because I believe that, and I think about that, that's just one thought, for example, a lot of the time, it helps me make wise decisions. Like being financially disciplined, not spending more than you make, knowing where your money's going, investing in assets, not liabilities, focusing on systems which, if they do need me, are still going to be systematized. And if they don't need me, are still going to be systematized. So this is the kind of video which can help you before we continue, right? This is the kind of video which will help you really understand just how I think about a lot of stuff, because it's stuff like this. And this is what you need to realize. You don't, like, righteous people use wise systems, and unrighteous, ungodly people use wise systems. The way God has set this up is you don't have to be righteous to use some of the systems and to reap some of the results. This is one of the reasons you see some of the most ungodly people extremely wealthy, because they use some of the systems that God has set up far better than some of God's children. Let's continue.
It's about learning to build assets instead of liabilities, systems instead of dependence, and long-term wealth instead of temporary income. If you continue thinking only in terms of salaries, your income will always be tied to your time.
If you continue thinking, he said, this is where you're going to go. Why? Because your beliefs are tied heavily to your thinking, and your thinking is tied heavily to your actions. It's like a loop. What you believe turns into what you think, and what you think turns into what you do. It's a cycle. So I always talk about planting wise seeds in the ground. That's the cycle. You believe that the wise seed is going to produce a mega tree, which is going to produce fruit. So because you believe that, you think about that. You think about that blossoming tree and all the fruit it's going to produce, and it's going to be perpetual. And because you believe that and you think that, you start doing it. You plant the wise seed in the ground, and then you take care of the wise seed. If you don't believe in that, if you think, you know, that's only for some people, that's not for me, you're going to go down a pathway which loads of other people believe. And you're going to be in that echo chamber, and you're going to be thinking, oh yeah, this is the way to go. I did a video recently, the person was talking about everyone's broke. And the guy was basically saying, look, everybody I see, everybody I know on a daily, weekly basis is broke, is struggling. And one of the things I said was, well, of course it's going to be that way. Because if you're broke, you most likely surround yourself with broke people. And if you are broke and you surround yourself with broke, even if you aren't broke and you surround yourself with broke people, if you listen to what they say and what they do and you follow them, you're going to end up broke eventually. So even when you're broke, even when you're struggling financially and you're around broke people, you shouldn't be listening to their financial advice. You should be listening to someone who's wise and wealthy's financial advice and doing what they say, even in that situation of being around broke people and being broke yourself. Because what's going to happen is, as long as you have enough tomorrows, eventually you're not going to be broke anymore. You're going to find yourself getting better and better and better financially, because that's how life works. So people always get focused on the situation. Why? Because they think it's because I'm in this situation I have these results. When really and truly, you could be in that situation and be doing the right thing, and it's only going to be a matter of time before you have the results which match your thinking. It's not rocket science. This is why people say you need to reprogram yourself, because we have a lot of negative thinking, a lot of costly, deadly, wicked beliefs which are holding us down. And until you break those beliefs and replace them with better, more profitable, prosperous beliefs, nothing's going to change. Because you're not going to do anything which contradicts your beliefs or contradicts what you think about most. It's pretty impossible. You have to change what you believe so it can change your thinking. This is why the Bible says you need to renew your mind. You need to renew it. Why? You need to renew it daily. Why? Because God knows this better than anyone. This is why you need to be born again. Because do you think if you are the same person, you're really going to believe you're going to change, be able to change the wicked stuff you've been doing, the foolish stuff you've been doing in the past? Of course not. It's because you believe that God has changed you. You're a new creation. You now do what the new creation does. God has been showing us this stuff from the early pages in the Bible. But have we been listening? This is the difference. So it doesn't matter if it's a godly person saying it, if it's an ungodly person saying it. It's true, not because the person's saying it. It's true because God made it true.
But when you learn to think in systems, you begin creating streams of value that can work for you around the clock. Today, you will discover how successful people build sustainable cash flow, why systems outperform effort alone, and how changing the way you think can completely transform your financial future. Because true wealth isn't measured by how much money you earn, it's measured by how many systems you've built that continue creating value long after you've finished the work. If you're ready to stop chasing money and start building something bigger, stay with me until the end. So
think about this, right? You create a system which can continue to produce income for you, for example, returns for you, for example, after you've built it. Why is it so significant? Because it's the complete opposite of a job. For most people, they work a job. They work 8 hours, for example, today, and they get paid whatever it is they're going to get paid, right? And that's it. That work that they did on Monday isn't going to make them any more money than what Monday did, because that's not the best system. And I'm not even someone who says like hate your job or anything along those lines. A job can be very useful for you as long as you don't think about it as the be-all and end-all. As long as you think about it as, okay, this is some cash flow which can help me invest in something else which can create more leverage for me, which can make me more time. But then at the same time, you create something which is a system. So for example, right, one system I have, right, is I created a product a year and a half, 2 years ago called Cash Flow for Christians. And it shows Christians how to create a digital product which they can sell any time of the day to anyone in the world based on their own unique skills, hobbies, and expertise. I created that a year and a half to 2 years ago. But people still pay me for that product today, guys. That's a system. I did work a year and a half to 2 years ago, and that work still pays me today. Why? Because it's a system. I was thinking from a system perspective. I know I'm put on this planet to teach Christians specifically, not that it doesn't work for other people, but to teach Christians specifically how, I like to say, to win with the word. And you know what's great about that? The word can help you win in every area of life. So that's just a product really about finance and business. But I'm doing this. Learning how to react righteously can help you in various different ways in life, can't it? So I'm recording this video today, but this video has the potential to continue to make me money for as long as it's on the internet. It's a system. So I'm just showing you some examples of how system thinking can totally change your life if you take the time if you invest in yourself today in order to make brighter futures for you and your family tomorrow. There's so many different ways you can do this. Let's continue.
If this message inspires you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Most people spend their entire lives trapped in a cycle they never question. They wake up, go to work, exchange their time for money, come home exhausted, and then repeat the process the next day. Society teaches us that this is normal. We are told to work harder, put in more hours, and chase bigger paychecks. But very few people stop and ask the most important question: what happens if I stop working tomorrow? For many, the answer is uncomfortable. The income stops. The cash flow disappears. The financial engine shuts down because it was never an engine at all. It was simply time being exchanged for money. This is why understanding the difference between earning income and creating cash flow is so important. One depends on your constant effort, while the other depends on systems that continue producing value. Time is the one asset that can never be replaced. You can lose money and earn it back. You can lose opportunities and create new ones. But every hour that passes is gone forever. When you trade all your time for income, you are spending the most valuable resource you have for something that can be replaced. Wealthy thinkers understand this principle deeply. They recognize that true financial growth begins when income becomes less dependent on personal labor and more dependent on systems. This doesn't mean you stop working. It means you start working differently. Instead of asking how many hours you can sell, ask how you can create value that continues long after the initial effort is completed. A teacher can create a course that helps students for years. A writer can publish content that reaches people around the world. A business owner can build processes that serve customers every day. The initial effort matters, but the long-term impact comes from the system that remains.
And see, what he's saying is, he said it already, this is foreign to most people. Most people don't ever stop or question or think about this sort of stuff. You mean, some people are still in this video thinking about what I said before about I made something a year and a half ago and it's still making me money. Why? Because they're like, whoa, you mean that you can actually work on something today and it continue to pay you back in the future? Yes. But what you have to do is to change your thinking. But this is the thing, right? I mentioned this earlier on. God has given us his word and it can help us in every area of life. So think about this. In the beginning, right, we saw God's system, his design. He created the universe, right? He did it in 6 days. He rested on the seventh day. He gave us a system. In order for you to have a perfect, profitable, and pleasurable week, there are two elements. You work on something good every single day, and you take a day of rest. That's a system. God didn't rest because he needed to rest. He rested, he ceased from his work, he stopped working to show us the system that we need because we are not God. Work on something good every single day, something very good in fact, and then take a time to rest, to stop. That's a system. But at the same time, I want to go very specific. God created the sun and the moon to be light for the daytime and the nighttime, and it's a system. It runs on autopilot. God set it up in that way. But the really specific example I want to give you is God created the trees. The trees produce fruit over and over and over and over again. But it's the fruit of one seed that goes in the ground. So when I'm talking about I create a product, for example, and it continues to sell a year and a half, 2 years later, just think about it like planting a seed in the ground and it blossoms into a tree that continues to produce fruit. That's all it is. That's all I'm doing. Using biblical systems, using the word to help me win in all of these different areas of my life. That's it. And it's the same thing that you can do. The Bible is there. The Bible is there, and it's been there, and it's not going anywhere. It's there for us to use, not to abuse it, and we will win if we follow what God says in all these different areas of life. It's just that simple. But you have to change your thinking. That's the point. You see, he said it, so many people don't question these things because it's uncomfortable. But I'd rather be uncomfortable for a season and make things better for myself and for my family for generations. That's thinking. Let's be able to say, okay, you know what, Israel, maybe you don't have the right thinking here. Maybe when God says you need to renew your mind, maybe when God says his thoughts are not our thoughts, his ways are far better than our ways, as high as the heaven is above the earth, his ways are better than our ways. What does that mean? That means there's dimensional thinking difference. There's a dimensional difference in our thinking between us and God. So you mean to mean our thinking is very ground level and God's level of thinking is heavenly. It's above the heavens. And you think that I really need to be thinking what I need to think instead of saying, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe it's better if I think what he thinks instead of thinking what I think. Hopefully that just helps someone.
Every successful system starts small. It begins with a single idea, a single action, and a commitment to think beyond immediate rewards.
Small.
The goal is not to escape work. The goal is to make your work count more. When you focus on building something that continues creating value, you move from survival thinking to growth thinking. The moment.
Now, which type of thinking do you think God is? Do you think God thinks from a perspective of, I need to do this to survive, there's no other option? Or do you think God is thinking from a position of wealth and abundance? You see, we think, not me say we, so many Christians have been deceived by the devil to think that someone like me as a Christian saying God is the God of prosperity, that I'm the problem. Instead of realizing that no, the devil's had us. He played a mighty trick on many Christians. You see, the devil is smart enough to know, let me put a bunch of prosperity preachers, as we call it today, on the airways and broadcast to the masses. So when people think about prosperity and God, they think about them instead of thinking about God. You see, when I ask you the question, do you think God is thinking from survival mode or he's thinking from success, prosperous mode? You could easily say, of course, God is not thinking from survival mode. God is thinking from prosperity and success. But when I turn around and say God is the God of success and God is the God of prosperity, why is it that you turn around and you think, is he just like those people that I've grown up thinking about? Is he like those people that I've seen on TV? That's by the design of the devil. The devil knows what he's doing. The only way we overcome what the devil does is by thinking from a godly perspective. So I don't say God is the God of prosperity because I'm trying to trick you into thinking that, yeah, sow $1,000 seed and you're going to reap $100,000. No, that's not it. I'm saying God is the God of prosperity and God can give you success and God can help you win because that's the very stuff that God says in his word. But it's not just about what God says in his word. It's about doing what God says in his word. The book, James says something in chapter 1, which is so funny. The one that follows the law of God is going to be blessed in all of his deeds. How, imagine a preacher today getting on a pulpit and saying, I know the blueprint or the secret for you to be blessed in everything that you do. Wouldn't most people automatically think, he's one of those preachers? Most people are going to be thinking that instead of thinking to themselves, oh, maybe he's talking about what James says in James chapter 1. That's the problem. Let's keep going.
You stop measuring success by hours worked and start measuring it by value created, your perspective changes. You begin to see opportunities where others see limitations.
So you mean to tell me some people look at things and see limitations, while some people look at the very same thing and see opportunity? Yes. Why? Because people think differently. We need to think more like the person who can see opportunity in the place where other people, many other people, are seeing limitation. That's what's going to separate you and help you tap into who you truly are and to become the version of yourself that God desires you to be, the version that God created you to be.
Realize that freedom is not about having more time off. Freedom is about creating a life where your income is no longer chained to every minute of your day. That is the first step toward true cash flow mastery. One of the most powerful shifts a person can make on the journey toward financial freedom is learning to think like an owner instead of an employee. This change does not require you to own a company today, have a large investment portfolio, or manage a team of people. It begins in the mind. It starts with how you view opportunities, responsibilities, and the results you create. Most employees are trained to focus on tasks. They are given instructions, deadlines, and expectations. Their goal is to complete the work assigned to them and receive compensation in return. There is nothing wrong with this approach, but it often creates a limited way of thinking. The focus remains on what needs to be done today rather than what can create value tomorrow.
So the difference in thinking is this, right? In a nutshell, people who are wise and wealthy think also not only about today, but also about the future and how today and the future are connected. People who aren't wealthy or wise typically just focus on a short amount of time today, and they're not really thinking about the future. This is why I always say one of the ways in order to dominate, right? One of the keys you need to dominate and be the best at anything you do in life is to, one of the things, I've got an acronym just for the record, right? The E is to have an eternal mindset, or to be thinking eternally. The longer you think down the pathway while still being productive today, the more built up for success you actually are. And this is one of the things which helps me understand why God is so successful. Not because he's thinking all the way down the pathway, but because he sees everything, he knows everything. So he knows all this stuff, so he's in the best position to profit and prosper from this particular scenario. And that's our God, guys. So why not tap into him more and more in life, in everything that you're doing in life? Let everything that you do be yielded and under the umbrella of the King. Don't forget to like it, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, don't forget to react righteously. God bless.